As we have started with all of these Beaks briefings, we feature a former Roadrunner student athlete. And if you read a little bit about Carol's bio in the notices that went out, she had quite a career after leaving LB, but it all got started here in Albany, Oregon. And Carol Menken-Schaudt is with us. And Carol, are you ready and able to jump on?
I think I am.
All right. Well, you are on. Thanks so much, Carol, for joining us, and really appreciate you taking time and in the times that you've been able to reach out and engage with us. I love your story and hoping that you can share a little bit of with that tonight in the limited time that we have.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought I would do is just kind of zip through my story because it is a bit unusual, and Linn-Benton played a pivotal role in my journey as an athlete. So I wanted to go through that, and then I'm going to sit just a little bit on a story about how the Olympic team was selected, because I think there's some relevant points that I can make that
Great.
can be applied to now. So I grew up in Jefferson, which is just down the road, just down I-5 or up I-5, I guess, from Linn-Benton. And my intention in going to Linn-Benton had nothing to do with playing basketball. I graduated from high school in 1975, and so there wasn't a whole lot of focus on girls' sports, especially in a small school like that. Title IX, although it existed, it was not really having an impact yet on girls' programs or women's programs. And so there wasn't a whole lot going on in Jefferson at that time. It was sort of like if there was money left over, or if somebody volunteered to coach or something, then you could have a team. But generally speaking, it was pretty low key. And I would say the level was kind of more on the level of a PE class. So ended up going to Linn-Benton Community College, did not go there to play basketball because they did not have a women's basketball program at the time. Went there to become a graphic artist because math was not my favorite subject in high school. Art was my favorite subject, and as a matter of fact, math was my least favorite subject. And in fact, you can tell how much I loved art because I actually took a harder math class than was required just because the easy math class conflicted with my art class. So I ended up going to Linn-Benton because they had a great graphic arts program. And it was so great, as a matter of fact, that by the time I got midway through the second year of the program, I realized that I was not really that great of a graphic artist. And so was looking for another pathway to make a living, and ended up switching over to drafting midway through my second year. And that carried me to a third year at Linn-Benton. And that's the year that they started up their first basketball team. The year before, they had started as a club team. And I thought about going out for the team or being a part of the team, and did practice some, but just decided that my schedule didn't allow for it. So my third year, I don't know what, my schedule probably still didn't allow for it, but for some reason thought, probably could have a little bit of time to play some basketball. I mean, good exercise, right? So started my basketball. Really, I consider Linn-Benton as the start of my basketball career. And so played the 1 year at Linn-Benton, had some success, even though I was very raw in my talents. Wasn't very, I'm 6'4", and so that really helps. And it was even more unusual back in the 70s. And so I had a lot of success at Linn-Benton, and through that success had the opportunity to go to Oregon State. And while at Oregon State, really started to develop as a basketball player, not just a tall person on the court. And so by the end of my 3 years at Oregon State, I had the privilege to make the U.S. national team for the first time, and played for the U.S. national team at the World University Games in 1981. At that same time, I had the opportunity to go overseas and continue to play. And so that kept me playing, which at that time there was no other options here in the United States after college. So that really was a blessing to continue my basketball career. Um, so I played in for the U.S. national team in '81. I played again in '83. And so it's the 1984 Olympic tryouts that I was going to kind of share with you how that played out back in 1984. They don't do it this way anymore. I think they're much more deliberate in how they're selecting the teams now, and they keep the teams together much longer than they did back then. But back then, it was basically once the college season was over in March, then they started the tryouts for the Olympic team for that summer. So you only had a few months, even after you made the team, to put the team together and to compete at a world level. So so the tryouts started with a 2-week open tryout, and you could basically, if you played anything that was outside of college, anything in addition to your college career, played some international ball, if you played AAU, if you played club, you had the opportunity to come and try out for the Olympic team. And there were about 200 athletes that were there. It was not a long time. I don't remember how long it was, but maybe a week. And so you can imagine how brutal the cuts were during a week time when you start out with 200 athletes. And by the end of the week, you were down to 5. The reason that it was 5 is because I was not in that section of the tryouts. That was phase 1. Starting in phase 2, they added the athletes that had played for the U.S. national team in 1983, the year prior. So there were 2 teams in 1983. I played on one of those teams, and so all of the players that played in 1983 were invited to phase 2 of the Olympic tryouts. So they took the A team, the B team, and then they added the 5 players from the open tryouts, and we started tryouts again. And that was about a 2-week period. It was also, very tough. I think we went for a couple of days with all of us, and then basically you would go and you would check the posting on the door to see if you were invited back for the next session. And so very stressful. A lot of uncertainty was during that time. We went for about 2 weeks. We got cut. We were cut down to 16 players. The final roster was going to be 12. And at the end of the 2 weeks, the selection committee could not decide on the final 12 players. And so what they decided to do was to send everybody home for 2 weeks and then bring us back for phase 2B of the tryouts. I think that 2 weeks was probably the most stressful 2 weeks of my life because of all of the uncertainty. The whole tryouts was stressful because you're trying to compete at your top level, and every practice is critical. Every practice is what is going to determine whether you are invited back to the next practice. And so it was very stressful. And then during the 2 weeks at home, we were told that we weren't to play basketball because they didn't want us to get injured playing basketball. We were just to work out, run and keep our conditioning up. And evidently, I was the only one that followed those rules. I'm a rule keeper, what can I say? But got back to tryouts and discovered everybody else was playing basketball. I mean, I guess I could have guessed that. I mean, my teammate was Cheryl Miller. I doubt very much she's going to go 2 weeks without playing basketball. Anyway, we got back to tryouts and again started the stress of each practice, not knowing if you were going to be back at the next practice. Well, actually, during that session, they went the whole week. They went an entire week. We had some scrimmages in there, and then they announced at the end of the week who the names of the final 12 players. And honestly, when we took the break, I knew that I was walking the line, because out of the 16 players, there were still 5 post players. And I'm thinking there's not a chance they're going to take 5 post players in a roster of 12. So uh, I knew who all the other players were, and I knew the caliber that they were, and I knew the experience that they had, and I knew that I was the one that was on the bottom of the totem pole. I was having a very good tryout, and so I think that was part of the reason why it was difficult to cut me. But I knew that I was walking the line the entire time, and so there was just uncertainty the whole time, and so you just have to put it out of your mind, and you have to focus every practice to just be the best player that you can be, and then just hope that that is good enough for the goal that you're going after. At the end of the second phase of the tryouts, they took us all in the wrestling room. This is in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center, and the wrestling area is right above, overlooking the gym. So they took us all up there, and I thought it very odd that they were putting us in the wrestling room to announce the final. And I thought, well, maybe it has something to do with the wrestling room is padded on all of the walls, and maybe they thought somebody's going to go berserk or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, we're all up there, and they decided to just list off alphabetically the name of the roster of the 12 players that had made the final team. And so we're all standing there sort of, in a line, and or just in a group, and they start listing off the names of the players that had made it. And they got to Lawrence, and then they did McGee. And when they hit Miller, my heart just sunk. They went on Mulkey, Noble. My heart sunk because Menken would fall before Miller. And so I thought that I had not made the team until after they did Noble. Then they said Schaudt. And so they actually used my married name instead of the hyphenated name that I had always been using. And so for about 4 names, I thought I hadn't made the team. And so, in fact, I probably wasn't even listening very close until I heard my name, and then knew that I had made the '84 Olympic team. So the reason I'm telling this story is because we live in times of, the word unprecedented is so overused these days, but it is really unprecedented uncertainty. And it is so difficult to be an athlete or an administrator or a teacher or a student with that level of uncertainty. You don't know, you're practicing, you're working hard, and you don't know if all of this hard work is going to turn into a game this weekend, or it's just really, really hard to stay focused and to really put everything into it when you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And so I applaud you all. This is such a difficult time, and I think it's a time of a great equalizer. I remember when I was on the '84 team, we toured through what was then Yugoslavia, and one of the games we played was on an outdoor court on an old crumbling asphalt we played on. So it was like really slick, and I thought, it was really the worst that the team played, because we couldn't get our grip, we couldn't use our quickness, we couldn't use our physical strengths that we had in the game. So the gravel was sort of like the great equalizer. And I think for this year, this COVID stuff is the great equalizer. And I think that the teams that are going to really show up and do well are not necessarily going to be the most physically talented teams. I think the teams that are going to do the best are the ones that are mentally tough, the ones that can deal with the uncertainty and show up and live in every day, as if it was certain, as if we had certainty. and to not let it affect them. And if it does affect you, the next day you have another chance to do better. And so to not let it slide and become a week and become 2 weeks, but to turn it around and to have the next week be better. So I just want to, encourage you. I picked up, this is something from, I don't know if it's a poem or, I guess I would call it a poem, from Mother Teresa. And so I want to end by just reading this to you. People are often unreasonable and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. What you spend years building up, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do to people will often, the good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be good enough. Give your best anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. And so I'll just end it with that, and just give your best, no matter what the season brings. Give your best anyway.
That is awesome, Carol. I appreciate that, and that really speaks to perseverance, is what I heard. I mean, you push through everything, and what great points about the world we're living in today. There are so many distractions that can help us lose focus, and that challenge is to just show up every day. And I think our coaches are focused on that. And we've got a great group of student athletes. But thanks so much for sharing your story. I know there's so much to this that we want to have you back where we can spend more time with you. So I hope that we can find time to do that another time. But this is such a brief snapshot, but it was great for you to share your story. And I just have to ask you before we close your session, so whatever happened to your drafting career?
Well, turns out once I found out I was going to Oregon State, and I looked at my transcripts, I didn't even have enough credits to enroll as a freshman, or as a sophomore. I was still a freshman after 3 years because I was in programs that weren't transferable. So I abandoned the drafting career in order to load up on transferable credits spring term before I transferred.
Great. Well, great. Well, thank you again, Carol. It's been great to visit with you, and what a great message for everybody. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you can stick around and listen to the rest, and then we'll be in touch soon. But thank you so much.